One of the things that hindered me in my process of completing my dissertation was getting started. If you are struck with analysis paralysis because you don't know how to start or where to start, this is the video for you.
Hello, Scholar Makers. I'm Dr. Erica Jewell, a practitioner, edupreneur, and researcher. If I had to guess, I would say that you are here today because you are either in a doctoral program and you want to know what to write for your dissertation and when to write certain parts of it, or you may be here because you're questioning whether you should start a doctoral program and you want to know, should I commit my life to writing the ultimate document, which is a dissertation? I'm here to help guide you through that. Do you know what the components of a dissertation are? Honestly, they vary from program to program, so I'll walk you through the process of writing my dissertation with the hopes that it can help in your process. Your doctoral advisor or your committee chair for your dissertation may give you different outlines and different guidelines, so use mine as a loose skeleton that you can build upon to at least get started. When you look at the table of contents of a dissertation, they mostly begin with the same first three things. That's the abstract. The abstract is a brief overview of what the dissertation is about. And then you have the dedication page. The author of the dissertation is actually dedicating their dissertation to someone or something of importance to them. Thirdly, you have the acknowledgments. The author can continue by giving acknowledgments to, again, the people or the things that are important to them. So the abstract, the dedication, and the acknowledgments come first, generally, in a dissertation. After the abstract, dedication, and acknowledgments, you will probably find a list of the tables and the figures that appear in the dissertation. Now, the number of tables and the number of figures will vary depending on the topic of the dissertation and depending on how many tables and figures are necessary to convey the point of what the researcher is endeavoring to support. After the abstract, the dedication, the acknowledgments, the list of tables, and list of figures, you get into the meat of the dissertation. Chapter 1 now begins. Chapter 1 is the introduction to your dissertation. This is pretty standard for all dissertations. Chapter 1 of my dissertation include the following. Statement of the problem. What problem will your dissertation address? What is the premise behind your study? After you explicitly state the problem that you're looking to focus on and address, then you share the purpose of the study that you've conducted. Next, you want to share what your research questions are. For my study, for example, I had 3 research questions. After you share your research questions, you want to share the significance of your research study. Why is what you're looking into and researching, why is it significant to the broader community? Once you've given the significance of your study, then you can share the definitions of important terminology. What are those terms that you need to address and define for those that are reading your dissertation to understand? Next, you want to share what are the limitations to your study. Your study is not all encompassing, so you want to be able to speak to the limitations that exist to your study so that you can acknowledge those limitations up front. Finally, you want to share what is the organization of the study. How is your study organized so that the reader can understand what they're reading as well as what is coming next. Chapter 2 in your dissertation will be the review of the literature, or some label it the literature review. In layman's terms, we often refer to it as our lit review, but of course in our dissertation, we write it out literature review or review of the literature. Within Chapter 2, your review of the literature, you can begin by sharing what are those theoretical or conceptual frameworks that you will utilize in your study. Depending on the preferences of your committee chair, you may be allowed to share or focus only on one particular framework. I focused on 3 frameworks. The first was the social constructivist theory and how it plays into how elementary school principals mentor and support their teacher leaders. I wanted to focus on the constructivist idea and understand if that was leading to how the principals were mentoring their teacher leaders. And if in turn the teacher leaders felt what the principals were giving them in that way. Did they interpret the constructivist model of learning as a way in which that they were being mentored? Secondly, I focused on the distributed leadership framework. And for this, I wanted to see how distributed leadership played into the ways in which principals mentored their teacher leaders. And again, the ways in which those teacher leaders received that mentorship from their principals. Finally, I used the information from the teacher leadership skills framework to layer into the other frameworks that I was utilizing. This helped to make my study more firm and more substantial in nature. After I labeled and described and shared my theoretical frameworks, I then wrote about how I would utilize those frameworks within my study. After discussing my theoretical frameworks, I then went into the actual review of my literature. For my study, my literature review was focused on two specific areas. Those two areas were teaching in urban schools and professional development and growth. Both of these topics to me were important for me to fully understand and describe in my dissertation because they allowed me, as the researcher and those who would later read my dissertation, to understand the underpinnings and the interworkings, the interrelationships that exist within urban schools, but also layered with professional development and growth. I wanted to study how does that happen within urban school settings. Once I expounded on the literature that I felt was necessary to make my study substantial, I ended chapter 2 with its own conclusion. Chapter 3 in my dissertation is labeled Plan of Inquiry. In other dissertations, it may be referred to as the Methodology chapter or the Research Designs and Methods chapter. Talk to your advisor or your committee chair to determine what is the proper title for Chapter 3. However, overall, Chapter 3 is where you're going to dig into the methodology of your particular study. What methods did you use in conducting your research? Here is where you will explicitly define your methods. In Chapter 3, I began by sharing my research design. My study, for example, was a qualitative phenomenological study. You decide whether you want to do a qualitative study or a quantitative study. My particular study was a qualitative study. Within your determination of what type of study or type of research you will conduct, you then have to define what will be the parameters surrounding how you conduct your study. Because of the type of study that I knew that I wanted to conduct, I felt as though doing a qualitative study was the best way for me to get to the heart of what I was interested in studying. This is only the beginning to your dissertation journey, and I hope that these tips have been helpful to you. In the videos that follow, I will describe in more detail how your writing process can flow, and I'll also help you with the rest of the chapters of your dissertation. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos just like this. Give me a thumbs up if this video has been of help to you, or if you're already a doctor, do you have any thoughts or anything that I may have left out that could extend the knowledge that I've shared today? Put it below in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.